All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today we're going to be reviewing Stephen King's short novel, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Now, you know, we always review the covers. So I've got the hardcover, the paperback. I love graphic design. I love cover illustrations. I think these are both average. I mean, nothing really great or spectacular about it. The hardcover, we've got the girl sort of running through the woods. You can see her running out of the frame with the Boston Red Sox cap on. This one is just a girl lost in the woods. She doesn't have the Red Sox cap. She doesn't, this one we can tell it's a Red Sox cap, and she may or may not be wearing headphones, which are important to the story. This cover just doesn't have any of that. So I will go with the hardcover version over the paperback version just because of the little details. If you've been following this channel, you know I've been reviewing every Stephen King novel in order of publication. We are to The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. A little over maybe 2/3 the way through, right? I've also been reading along in the book with the audible.com narration. I've got every Stephen King book in hardcover, in paperback, and audible.com. No ebooks because ebooks suck. Stop buying them, folks. They're garbage. Hardcovers, paperbacks, and Audible. The Audible narrator was a voice actress. Well, she's actually a well-known actress named Anne Heche. She did a very good job, a spectacular job of narrating this. And, you know, I listened to this book. It took me about 3 hours to listen to the whole thing. Like I said, it's a short book. It's dynamite. Dynamite. It's about a girl who is a huge fan of the Boston Red Sox, and her favorite player is the closing pitcher named Tom Gordon. It's actually based off of a real pitcher for the Boston Red Sox back in the late 90s named Tom Gordon. He was a magnificent game closer. They would bring him in for the last few innings to close out games. And he won a ton of games for the Red Sox. And our little girl here, Trisha, who's the main character in this, that's her favorite player. She loves listening to the Red Sox games on the radio or on TV, or sometimes she watches them live with her father. Anyway, her family goes hiking along the Appalachian Trail up along the Maine, New Hampshire border up near Canada, and she gets lost in the woods. So now we're going to veer away from the book review itself, and we're going to just talk about being lost in the woods for a minute. So, I've been along the East Coast. Now, I have not been along the Appalachian Trail up in New Hampshire and Maine. I don't know how vast the woods are up there. Okay, I don't know how far you can travel in any one direction before you run into a road, a cottage, a strip mall, a movie theater, a McDonald's. I don't know. But I do know that in most places in the United States, with the exception of, the West, like some of the deserts of southern Utah, some of the wilds of Montana, specifically Alaska, you can wander for hundreds of miles and not see anything but wilderness. Maine and New Hampshire, though, we're talking about a kid, so I will say, if you're a child lost in the woods, that sucks. We can't expect children to be as smart as adults and be able to find their way through the woods. However, this is one of the reasons I never liked that movie, The Blair Witch Project, is because in the Blair Witch Project, we've got some people in Virginia who are lost in the woods, and that's the whole premise of the Blair Witch Project. And I'm like, I've been to Virginia. You can't get lost in the woods in Virginia, but you go 10 minutes in any direction, you're going to run into something. It's a virtual impossibility, okay? Anywhere on the East Coast, if you're an adult, I'm talking about adults now, not kids. If you're an adult and you get lost in the woods anywhere on the East Coast, and you perish because you're lost, That's just because you're not self-aware of anything. Just head north or east or west. Don't go in circles. That's the fucking first problem. Just head in one direction and you will run across something. I mean, even here in Utah, where the wildernesses are vast, we get people that get lost in the Uinta Mountains. Now, a lot of children get lost in there, and I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about adults. The Uinta Mountains is a vast place. But if you're aware of where you're at on the planet and if you're hiking, you will know that there's a major freeway to the south of the Uintas. There's a major freeway to the north of the Uintas. And if you're plumb lost in the middle of the Uintas, just walk 30 miles south or 30 miles north. You're going to get a freeway. Now, granted, if you walk east or west, it might be 100 miles before you run into something, but you're going to run into a road. You're going to run into a little logging road or something. Now, I will say there are some places in southern Utah where you can get lost, and you don't want to be the adult or kid or experienced hiker. You don't want to get lost in some of the places in southern Utah because it's red rock cliffs. It's like being lost in a puzzle, in a maze that is a puzzle. That's a tongue twister. I've been in some of those red rock canyons, and you don't want to get lost there. You will never find. And there are experienced hikers that get lost down in those areas. And if you don't have water and stuff, you're done for. You're done for. I've been in Alaska. I grew up in Alaska, moose hunting in Alaska. Now let's talk about kids. Even kids. When I was a kid from 5 to 13 years old, I hunted moose in Alaska with we would go into the wilds of Alaska. But I was a unique kid. I used to study maps. I was big into maps. Everywhere, I knew exactly where we were at all times. I knew if I got lost, even in the Alaska wilderness, I'd be able to find my way back to Fairbanks. Because I knew the rivers, I knew which rivers went where, and I knew they all kind of went to Fairbanks. And I was just like, well, I just find a river and follow it there. We're talking about lost kids, though. We're talking about lost kids, and I was a unique kid in Alaska in that I studied maps. That was my thing, so I always knew what was what and what was where. Now in Alaska, there's critters that will eat you. You don't want to get lost in Alaska. In New Hampshire, they're bears maybe, but mostly you're not going to run into anything that's going to actively hunt you down and kill you. But we're going to talk about this book here in a little bit. So this girl gets lost. My rant is over on people who get lost in the wildernesses and can't find their way out. Unless you're in Sahara Desert or you're in the middle of Africa. If you're on the East Coast and you get lost in the woods and you're an adult, I don't know, man. I got some issues. But if you're a kid, that's fine. We forgive the kids that get lost. So, Trisha gets lost in the woods. One of the things I love about Stephen King books is this is just a kid lost in the woods. But Stephen King has such a way of, actually, you get to know, she's just one character. There's only one character in this book, but Stephen King has this magical way of letting you get to know her entire family. Even though she's one lone character lost in the woods, you get to know the entire history of her family, all the inner workings of her family, the disagreements her family has, the drama her family has, the highs and lows and happinesses her family has, as she's lost in the woods. Because Stephen King just has a way of telling a story where you're just like, not only do I know this one narrator of the story, but I know her whole family, even though I'm never going to get to meet them. And that's just dynamite, because that builds drama, and it gives a reason why she's gotten lost in the woods. She basically gets lost in the woods because she's sick of her family at the moment, because they're bickering, and she's like, I just got to get away from this for half a second. And the next thing you know, she's lost in the woods. Now, Stephen King, it looks like he did his research about the woods and that part of the Appalachian Trail. So even though I just criticized people who get lost in the woods, and I was very kind of judgmental about that, I do know that Stephen King researched this area, and according to his research, it would be very easy for someone to become lost in those woods. If you're a child, yes. I think I think if you plopped me down blindfolded from a helicopter and I didn't know where on the planet I was, and it was in this wilderness, I would be able to find my way out pretty swiftly. But that's because I'm an adult who's been in the woods a lot. I appreciated that Stephen King researched that because I was wondering, okay, I've been hiking in the East. I've been in the woods. I've been in the wildernesses in the East. And it's plumb near impossible to get lost. I mean, you could maybe wander about for a day and a night, but eventually you're gonna stumble into someone's farm or a road or a highway or a McDonald's or a strip mall or a school. I mean, God, or a neighborhood. I mean, they're just everywhere out there. So I was a little bit, but he did his research about that part of the Appalachian Trail and how you could get lost if you were a kid, especially if you kept going in circles, if you kept making the wrong choices. Now, the girl does make a few right choices. Like, she's like, well, I remember my mom once said that streams always lead you somewhere. So just follow a stream and it will lead you to a bigger stream, which will lead to a bigger stream and then a bigger stream. And the next thing you know, you're on the Nile River and there's the pyramids, right? You'll find something. You know what I'm saying? You'll find something if you just follow the stream. So she sort of does that, but then she gets a little sidetracked. One of the things that I loved about this is she has a transistor radio with her and the headphones. It's her Walkman. She got a Walkman. If you know what a Walkman is, for those of you too young to know what a Walkman is, it's like your old iPod. Bigger, more clunky, played cassette tapes, had a radio on it. And so she's lost for like maybe 7 or 10 days. And there's the god of the forest that's out chasing her. And that's towards the end, but we won't get into that. And then, because Stephen King's always got to put creepy monsters in a book. But so she's listening to the Red Sox baseball game. So she can hear that there's still life out there. She still can, and so then she listens to the Boston Red Sox games on the radio, and she starts to see visions of Tom Gordon, her hero, and he kind of talks to her in these visions as she's trying to find her way out of the wilderness. And it's just a kind of a cool story, despite my sort of rants. I like this book quite a bit. We're going to give this one, and I'm not going to let you know whether the god of the forest captures her or kills her, or if she survives her trek through the wilderness or not. I'll let you figure out what happens in the end, because it got a really cool ending. And I am going to give this about a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was about an average Stephen King novel. I mean, not one that really disappointed me, not one that really blew me away. But definitely for Stephen King, pretty dope.